Let's welcome back to the show from the Heritage Foundation. He's a regional economics research fellow. He's E.J. Antoni. E.J., it's good to see you. So insider trading is not illegal in the U.S. unless you're a member of Congress?
Well, apparently, Liz, Chip Roy, I think, really hit the nail on the head where he said it depends on the kinds of information that we're talking about here. But when you have people who are sitting on sensitive intelligence committees or who have access to foreign data, such as potential coming conflicts, whether that's in Israel or the Ukraine, and these people are turning around and doing things like buying stock in defense contractors right before they pass bills that's going to give those defense contractors billions of dollars. I'm sorry, but these kinds of things have to be looked into. And the big irony here, Liz, is the fact that we are talking about people who have banned CEOs and other high-ranking officers in private business from doing exactly the kinds of things that the people in Congress are doing right now.
The big issue here is that members of Congress are making directional bets and trades via what are called calls and put options. Calls and put options are bets on the direction of a stock up or down. That can be closely linked to how legislation moves stocks, EJ, and moves the market. I mean, should that be outlawed for members of Congress? Because just look at the trades Nancy Pelosi and her husband are making. They reportedly bought shares of Karuna Therapeutics right before it was sold to Bristol Myers Squibb. That stock nearly then doubled. They also recently bought NVIDIA call options in NVIDIA in late November, reportedly going to make capital gains of millions of dollars. Again, NVIDIA is going to make money on the massive spending in the new CHIPS Act. This call option action that the Pelosi's did, it's their largest stock purchase in the last 3 years.
Right. And you know what, Liz, I'm not sure that we necessarily need to ban stock trading, although that would be a good start. But maybe the bigger lesson here is the fact that government is simply too large. When you have these people in Congress who are throwing around trillions of dollars out of the public purse to influence markets that have the potential to move stocks up and down by giving handouts, like you mentioned, to these chip makers, that's the real problem here. We simply have government doing too many things that it simply has absolutely no business doing.
Nancy Pelosi's net worth, the family's, she and her husband, it's soaring to nearly $115 million. Open Secret says her net worth is up $41 million since 2004. I mean, you can make a lot of money, being a member of Congress in ways that the public allegedly doesn't see. I mean, the Pelosi's reportedly netted millions of dollars in profit, EJ, from buying call options on other blue chip stocks like Salesforce.com or Roblox or Disney. They've made well-timed sales as well. I mean, so what we're talking about here is, and you're pointing it out, is what do you do about it? I mean, we do not want voters to feel any more cynical about D.C. than they already do. Again, the directional bets, calls and put options, that can be linked to market-moving legislation. When they're making bets like that, these levered bets or those directional bets, maybe that's where you start. Maybe say you can't do that.
Oh, certainly, Liz, absolutely. And let's be clear here. It doesn't take a cynic to put two and two together here and to realize that there is certainly some insider trading, quote unquote, going on. I mean, the fact is that you simply cannot consistently have the kinds of returns that people like Pelosi do and not be somehow benefiting from information that's not available to the general public.
Got it. EJ, come back. We'd love having you on. Good to see you.